So it seems that the same person has won all 3 of Games Workshop's US Open tournaments. Let's take a look at the list that Mr Siegler used to take the US Open in Austin, Texas. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're just taking a look at another strong army list, and a bit of a glimpse into what sort of things might be ones to look out for now the Games Workshop balanced data slate has made some big changes to the game. There seems no doubt that it's made a bit of an impact. Admech were decidedly more thin on the ground, and Mr Siegler himself had switched from Admech to Drukhari on this one, though that didn't seem to have phased him at all with taking yet another big tournament. Let's take a look at his list then, and talk about the combination of units in this very scary Drukhari Covens list. So here's a Drukhari list, again built around their 3 patrols, and it's certainly making use of far more Coven units than we've seen in Drukhari normally. I did have a bit of a suspicion that Drukhari armies might be going this way after a lot of their strongest options got nerfed, yet the majority of the very strong options from the Homunculus Covens either stayed the same or even went down in cost. It certainly seems to be enough to make Talos and Grotesques break through. This list is just monstrously durable, and I think virtually any army is going to have a really hard time taking this on. They're going to be a massive pain to scrape off objectives and can put out a serious amount of damage up close as well. The army is organised into 3 different patrols, and Drukhari allow them to do that without costing any command points extra. The first one is Artists of Flesh, the -1 damage custom Homunculus Coven. That's the one that's particularly solid with the Grotesques and Talos, and now at their new lower points cost they're looking very nice indeed. It is a seriously tough combination to be able to stack -1 damage, a 5+ feel no pain, an invul save that gets better towards the end of the game, and a fairly decent amount of wounds for the cost. The Coven is led by a Homunculus with the Master Regenicist and the Animus Vitae. The Homunculus allows nearby units to be +1 toughness, so when shooting at those Talos they're usually going to be toughness 7, and Master Regenerist allows him to heal 3 wounds on the Talos rather than just D3. It means if you try and fail to kill the Talos, which you might well do, then they're quite likely to be heading all the way up back towards full health again. The Animus Vitae is a mortal wound grenade. It only has kind of moderate damage unless it gets to shoot at a horde, but the main benefit of having it is that if you manage to use it on the enemy, then the entire Drukhari army get an extra turn towards their power from pain. Could be good to advance that along a little bit more. You could get +1 to hit 1 turn early, or a 5+ invul save 1 turn early. That's going to make everything even more survivable. Next we have a seriously hefty amount of Wracks in the troop slot. Firstly, an absolutely enormous unit of 18 Wracks, one with the electric corrosive whip and one with an ossifactor. It's really quite cool to see an enormous unit of foot slogging Drukhari, and it is pretty interesting that the list in general just doesn't make any use of transports whatsoever. Kind of interesting that a raiderless build has emerged as one of the new strongest ways to play. Potentially for a little bit of damage output, if you need more, you could use the Torturer's Craft on them. That's a stratagem to allow them to reroll wound rolls, and it does mean that they should do a fairly decent job of clearing things out in melee with those poisoned attacks at AP -1. The -1 damage in the Coven also does help them a bit as well. If they're struck by any damage 2 attacks, that'll be down to damage 1, and that makes them a lot more likely to pass their feel no pain type save, so it's not even useless on them. As well as that, there's 2 other units of 5 Wracks as well. At 40 points they're pretty excellent little units for things like actions and objectives. Then we come to some of the really big hitters of the list, 2 big units of 4 Grotesques with the Cleavers. With the -1 damage built in, these guys are looking seriously interesting now. Toughness 5, 4 wounds. They do have a bad save, but they have a 5+ feel no pain and -1 damage, meaning that you're going to need some massive volume fire to chew through them. They're armed with monstrous cleavers in close combat, strength 5, AP -2 and 2 damage, and they get a big 5 attacks with those, so incredibly dangerous when they get into again potentially with rerolls from Torturer's Craft, or other buffs from Power from Pain. They seem like a reasonable enough option for stomping up towards objectives, and daring anyone to get within charge range. Next up, a couple of units of 2 Talos make an appearance, 2 units of 2 with 2 Heat Lances. They only hit on 4s, but if you do get any damage through, then it's D6+2, so potentially to one-shot heavy things in one shot. And then in combat, they're armed with a Talos Gauntlet, hitting on 4s, but strength 8, AP -3 and damage 3, so anything hit is going to feel it. And that's backed up with the Talos Ichor Injector. That has a pretty decent chance to punch through a few mortal wounds. Potentially the Talos or the Kronos could close with the enemy quite quickly if needed, maybe making use of Never Stationary. That could also be done with the massive units of Wracks as well, as it does include an ossifactor. Next up we have a patrol of Dark Technomancers. This one's led by a Master Succubus. I believe that there's a quirk of the Drukhari detachments that allow you to take Succubi and Archons within those detachments without you actually losing the benefit of said detachments. and that does mean that you can take a succubus alongside dark technomancers. The succubus takes high pecs, the +2 movement one, has 2 attacks from her warlord trait, and takes the triptych whip, so she's going to be pretty efficient at blending elite infantry. Being a master succubus, hopefully she can try and stay safe around those Wracks, hopefully hitting something in close combat, then dancing away before the enemy gets to strike back. Again, the patrol has 5 Wracks, and then we've got 2 really meaty units of Kronos parasite engines. Still very tough for the points, at only 75 points for 7 wounds. They're nowhere near as dangerous as the Talos in close combat, but they each have spirit siphons, which get incredibly dangerous with dark technomancers active, as they can't overheat on those, and they also have a little bit more spirit vortex fire as well, so they do put out a fairly hefty amount of range damage when they're close, while being really tough. Each of them takes a spirit probe, so they can reroll wound rolls of 1 in close combat, and the Kronos do have an ability called Reservoir of Pain, which allows you to set up injured models from nearby Drukhari core squads if they do manage to kill anything in close combat. If they get lucky and none of the models have taken any damage, then that could actually allow you to set up an entire new Kronos or Talos again, which could be pretty frustrating for the opponent, as they've had to put quite a lot of work in to down them in the first place. Finally, you have a small patrol of Cabal of the Black Heart. Again, it's a bit more of a mixed thing, but no one's really using the actual Cabal trait in the first place. It's led by an Archon with Ancient Evil, which is the one that allows enemies to fight last nearby, the Gym Blade and Master Archon to fight twice, so he's still a melee powerhouse in himself, and while he's on the table it means that you could use the Agents of Vex stratagem, which could be handy for messing with enemy stratagems. There's then a very big meaty unit of Court of the Archon, with 4 Slith and 4 Urgals. Again, another monstrously tough unit with loads of Feel No Pain just to go with all the rest. Another unit of 5 Wracks, and then to control the midfield if it's needed, 1 unit of 5 Mandrakes. Overall, it's really quite a big pivot for the Drukhari, going from a whole host of forces charging out of raiders at breakneck speed. They're now going to be coming at the world with their stitched together Frankenstein horrors. Just about every part of this list is just incredibly tough to take down, often it can heal itself in one way or another, and when they get close they're all pretty capable of meting out decent amounts of damage, particularly when buffed with stratagems and things. Just generally, this is going to be a troublesome list to play against for just about any army. It seems like it would be particularly good for taking objectives like Stranglehold with that massive unit of Auspex Wracks, and a whole bunch of meaty units that really want to just dare the enemy to get close to them. There's still enough units here to hold objectives though, and do actions and things if needed. 3 units of Wracks and those Mandrakes could easily deal with a whole load of primary and secondary points just by themselves. On the top table in the final round, I believe he played against Mani Chima's Tyranids, no less than 18 Hive Guard with all the buffs. Despite them having fairly reasonable weapons for taking down the Talos and Kronos profile, it still didn't seem to be enough. I believe the second turn or so, the Feel No Pain saves just didn't want to fail, and when you play against this sort of thing, you really do need to be erasing the damage dealers early, before they get to your lines, or before they develop an insurmountable score lead. In any case, massive hats off for winning 3 events in a row. It's a ridiculously impressive achievement with all the good players that were at those events, and it does show off that 40k is a game about high levels of skill, both about choosing the exact right list to run, and then running it to perfection. I'm going to guess that we'll be seeing a lot more from Drukhari Covens over the next few months. Hopefully I'll try and do a video later in the week talking about the general state of 40k right now, and what armies I think are going to be top following this big balance update shake-up. So let me know what you think of the list down in the comments below. As always, I look forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas, and any other insights as to how the list plays and works, as I'm sure I'll have missed plenty of the nuances. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep the regular 40k content coming, with new videos out just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page, and you can find that down in the video description below. Channel patrons get a fair few advantages, including seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next for the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.